On a plane trip, a man named Taylor is flying with his family. When they begin to experience severe turbulence, the pilot of the plane asks the man to stay calm. The man's wife tries to calm their son, a little boy named Bruce. The pilot asks what Bruce is reading, and he simply shows a comic called The Time of Terror. The mother explains that the little boy has a very vivid imagination and believes everything he reads. The pilot comments to the family that she also has a daughter his age. Taylor jokes, saying that they should introduce the two. Bruce starts to have a nervous breakdown, and they ask the boy what is happening. Suddenly, another plane collides with theirs. Then we see the pilot plummeting from the heights, marking her tragic death. Years later, we meet her daughter, a young woman named Sarah, who decided to follow in her mother's footsteps, even knowing what happened to her. Sarah is preparing for a trip with her boyfriend and friends when her father calls her. Sarah's father seems worried about his daughter's trip and asks her to be careful. Then he says goodbye to her. At a local airport, Sarah's couple friends arrive first. They are Mel and her boyfriend Sal. Mel is filming everything with her camera. She intends to record the entire trip. Sal makes some jokes for the camera, while the man working at the airport seems to dislike the situation. Soon after, Sarah's cousin arrives at the location, a young man named Corey. In a short moment, he and Mel find themselves in an awkward situation, seeming as if they had a fling in the past. Sarah soon arrives and explains her delay. She comments that she had some problems but made it to the plane. Then her boyfriend Bruce arrives at the location, the same little boy from the beginning of the film. He managed to survive. Bruce seems nervous about the trip, due to the tragic incident that occurred in his past. Bruce, worried about the weather, asks Sarah how it looks today. She replies that it's just a little cloudy, and asks him to relax. Sarah asks if Sarah's father is okay with her flying. Lacking empathy, Sarah mentions the tragedy that happened to Sarah's mother. He asks if the same thing won't happen again. Sarah, chuckling, answers that it isn't her mother. Immediately they head to the hangar where the plane is located, and everyone begins to board, except for Bruce, who remains standing at the entrance, watching from a distance. While the others approach excitedly, they don't even notice that Bruce has stayed behind. Corey jokingly, sarcastically says that when he gets famous with his music, he will buy one of those planes for Sarah. She laughs at the situation, but soon realizes that Bruce is still standing there and decides to go to him. Corey shows some discomfort with Bruce's presence, but Sarah asks him to be patient, saying that Bruce just needs time. Inside the plane, Corey asks Mel how Sarah met her boyfriend. Mel explains that Sarah was looking for someone to give her lessons, and she ended up meeting Bruce. She says that's how they started. Sarah, always interrupting, comments that Bruce's parents have a lot of money. Sarah convinces Bruce to board, and he, still uncomfortable, asks why she let Sarah talk that way about her mother. Sarah replies that he is just like that, and that she is already used to his clueless comments. She then comments that this will be their last weekend together, but Bruce does not like the word last. He says it seems like they will never see each other again. She just smiles and kisses him, trying to calm him down. Soon they initiate takeoff, and Mel asks Sarah if it's always this noisy, saying that she doesn't want the sound to interfere with the filming. Sarah replies that it won't be so bad up there. After receiving clearance from the tower, she starts the flight. Sarah asks how long it will take them to arrive, and Sarah replies that if the weather is good, in just 90 minutes. Mel takes some pills, and Corey asks what they are for. She replies that they are for motion sickness. Sarah asks her not to vomit on him, and Corey comments that it's just an hour and a half, reminding that last time they drove, and the trip was insane. Bruce, still insecure, starts asking Sarah questions, wanting to know how many hours of flight she has. She replies that she has many hours, as she needs to accumulate experience to fly alone. But Bruce insists, and specifically asks about that plane. Sarah, already impatient with her boyfriend's constant insecurity, asks him to just stay calm. She continues checking all the controls in the cockpit, while the others chat animatedly. Bruce is so nervous that his legs are shaking uncontrollably. In a brief moment, as the plane begins to rise, the camera focuses on an important detail. A screw in the fuselage is slowly coming loose. As Sarah talks to the control center, Bruce asks if everything is okay. She replies that yes, it's just part of the routine, asking him once again not to worry. Corey takes the opportunity to ask if Sarah will still need a ride to visit her father, but Bruce quickly comments that she will come back with him. Sarah explains to Bruce that this time she will have to refuse because her father really wants to see her. At the exact moment Bruce is about to say something, a sudden turbulence violently shakes the plane, causing him to drop the subject. Sarah starts showing signs that he is not feeling very well, possibly due to excessive drinking. Mel continues filming everything, especially focusing on Corey. During the conversation, she asks how his love life is going. Corey says that question is a bit too personal, and Sarah immediately gets alert. Corey tries to deflect, but Mel insists. He ends up saying that he does have someone. She asks if it's someone they know, and when she asks the girl's name, Corey replies that it's better not to say because she has a boyfriend. The atmosphere becomes tenser, and Sale, suspicious, sarcastically says that Corey is very funny. While the plane soars, Sarah decides to have a snack, which worries Bruce. He asks if she shouldn't keep her hands on the yoke. She, with a calm smile, replies that the plane is on autopilot. To lighten the tension, Bruce reminds her of his present. She asks if he really brought it, and Mel, curious, asks him to show it. Bruce explains that it's just a comic book. Corey, in a teasing tone, implies that he is one of those guys, and Bruce asks what he meant by that. Corey brushes it off, saying he's just joking, and asks to see the comic book. Now everyone is interested in looking. To divert attention and try to make Bruce more at ease, Sarah briefly puts him in control of the plane. But soon the mood changes. The plane starts losing altitude, and Sale, nervous, asks Sarah to take control again. She calmly replies that it's just a bit of turbulence and asks Bruce to pull the yoke, but he replies that it's stuck. The plane continues losing altitude rapidly, and that same screw that we saw before is now about to come completely loose. Mel comments that this is losing the fun, uncomfortable with the situation. Sarah keeps insisting that Bruce try to pull the yoke, but under the pressure from everyone, she decides to take control back. At that moment, the screw finally comes loose, although at first glance, this doesn't seem to have an immediate impact on the flight. Sarah asks Bruce if he is okay, but before he can answer, Sal, still agitated, asks to see the present he had mentioned. Without waiting for permission, Sal pulls the backpack and takes out the comic. Corey tries to stop him, asking him to give it back, but he can't. Sal starts taking the comic out of the plastic bag, ripping it in front of everyone. Irritated, he accuses Bruce of being childish for still reading comics, especially after almost putting everyone in danger. Bruce watches the situation silently as Mel finds a passage headed to Montreal. Corey comments that that's exactly where Sarah is moving to. With the heavy atmosphere inside the cockpit, Corey says he planned to tell her, and Sarah asks when he would do that. But before the conversation progresses, she notices they are approaching a storm. She contacts the control center and requests clearance to gain altitude. Mel, worried, asks what is happening. Sarah explains that a dense storm is blocking visibility and that they will need to fly above the clouds to escape. From inside the cockpit, we see that the same now loose screw was holding an important piece of the plane's structure. Bruce asks how high the plane can climb, and Sarah replies that the limit is 24,000 feet. The plane starts shaking more intensely. Sarah says it's just a lack of stability, but Sal panics, insisting that they are all going to die. Sarah then begins to realize that something is really wrong. When they reach 10,000 meters, she cannot stabilize the plane and informs that something is holding the elevators, preventing proper control. She contacts the control center, but decides not to inform about the technical problem. Corey disagrees, saying she should have said, "Everyone gets scared when they look ahead, and through the window, can see that they are being engulfed by a gigantic storm." They ask Sarah to turn the plane around, but the storm is too intense, and soon fully envelops them. Lightning and thunder dominate the environment, and the cabin is filled with tension. Sarah asks everyone to remain calm. When she looks at the altitude gauge, she sees that they are at 20,000 feet. She says that's impossible, and it's probably a malfunction. She tries to contact the control center again, informing that the plane keeps climbing out of control, and requests instructions, but she receives no response. Panic takes over everyone. Bruce is completely paralyzed. Mel screams and Sal becomes frantic, and even Sarah starts to show signs of fear. Mel asks her to reduce the power of the plane, but Sarah says that's not possible. She explains that with zero visibility, slowing down would be extremely risky, as they risk colliding with some mountain ahead. Sal begins to blame Bruce, saying he must have done something wrong on the plane, but Sarah quickly defends her boyfriend, firmly stating that he didn't do anything. The group enters into a heated discussion, and Sal continues to attack, now blaming Sarah for everything. Trying to maintain control of the situation, she says that she might have forgotten something, and asks if their cell phones have signal. Before they receive an answer, the plane starts losing power. Sarah asks Bruce for the plane's manual, but he is panicking, trembling and completely disoriented. Shortly after, he regains some lucidity and asks why she wants the manual, questioning whether she really knows how to pilot that plane. Sarah, keeping her calm, asks him to look for the maximum takeoff weight. Bruce responds that the value is 6,000 kilograms. She explains that if they are above that weight, the plane won't be able to stay airborne, and they will crash. She then asks for the weight of the empty plane, and Bruce replies that it is 4,891. Then Sarah starts estimating the weight of the group and their baggage, and when adding everything up, they arrive at 1,800 kilograms over. She says they need to get rid of anything unnecessary, or the fall will be inevitable. Mel refuses the idea, saying she isn't going to throw her things away, but Sal, already impatient, says he will do it for her. Corey volunteers to open the boarding door, and Sal helps him hold tight to prevent any accidents. As soon as the door is opened, Corey immediately throws out his guitar, followed by several other belongings of the group. At the moment, Sal is tossing a suitcase outside. For a brief instant, he sees a shadow outside the plane and gets startled. Everyone asks what happened, and he claims to have seen something, but in light of the severity of the situation, the others ignore and ask him to keep discarding the excess weight. After throwing everything they could, Corey and Sal close the door again, and the group tries to rest for a few minutes. Corey asks how much time they have left, and Sarah, in shock, looks at the fuel gauge. With a desperate expression, she reveals that there is only 1 hour left. The group enters a state of apathy, almost hopeless, until Sal remembers the parachutes and mentions the possibility of using them. The guys agree immediately, but Mel and Sarah don't even want to consider the idea, claiming that the risk of jumping in the middle of a storm is extremely high. Sarah adds that something is very wrong and says they shouldn't be this high, and if they jump from such a low altitude, they will turn into mashed potatoes. The group falls silent for a few seconds until Corey, insistent, asks Mel to try one of the parachutes. Sal gets irritated and tells him to stay away from his girlfriend, calling him an idiot for trying to take advantage of the situation. Tension escalates, and the two start a fight, which is only contained when Mel intervenes and separates them. Then she notices that her camera is running out of battery, generating another discussion with Sal, but this time Sarah loses her patience and demands that everyone shut up. In the midst of the tense silence, Bruce breaks the mood by saying that they are all going to die just like his parents. He continues, asserting that they need to descend immediately. In a panic attack, Bruce tries to take control of the yoke, screaming that they can't keep climbing. The other guys rush to restrain him and try to calm him down. Sal manages to put him in a chokehold and makes him faint. Corey asks what exactly he was talking about, and Sarah believes Bruce was referring to his parents' accident. Sal, uncomfortable, asks why he agreed to come on the trip if he was so afraid of flying. Sarah takes the blame, saying it was her who invited him. Sal then calls her a lovesick idiot, but she reveals that she isn't in love with Bruce. Sal insults her, saying that she just wanted to use her friend and then throw him away. In light of this, Corey suggests that they tie Bruce up for safety. Sarah is against the idea, but the others agree, saying the risk of him trying to take control again is too high. They tie him up while, in the front, Mel comments that the place is getting very cold. She asks if there isn't a heating system, and Sarah replies that yes, but if they turn it on, it will consume more fuel and speed up the inevitable process. Then she mentions the more serious problem. Sarah explains that above 3,000 feet, everyone will run out of oxygen, and this will cause headaches, nausea, and loss of consciousness. Finally, she comments that if the elevator of the plane were working properly, she could make an emergency landing. Corey asks if there's any way to fix this, and Sarah answers that yes, but someone would have to exit the plane to do so. Corey asks if Sarah is really serious about the tail of the plane being loose, and everyone looks back worriedly. Sal refuses the idea, but Mel calls him a coward. Corey insists that Sarah go in his place, while the plane starts shaking and the cold begins to tighten. Sal asks what is happening, and Sarah explains that the defroster has stopped working. Corey tries to minimize, but Sarah warns that if the flaps freeze, the plane will fall. Mel panics and feels a strong headache. Corey decides to act to save Mel, even knowing the risks, and assures that he has climbing experience and a rope to secure himself. Mel suggests he use a parachute, but he declines. Sarah, suspicious, hesitates, but Corey firmly convinces her. In desperation, Sarah agrees that if they can free the elevator, everything will be fine. Corey tries to tie the rope, somewhat drunk, with the help of Sal, who secures it tightly to Corey's body. Sarah slows down the plane and asks him to promise that he will make it. Before leaving, Mel kisses him, while Sal watches in silence with a tense expression. Corey is pulled outside, holding on only by the rope. The plane shakes, and Sarah realizes that the weight is misaligned. Corey is almost swept away by the wind, but he manages to hold on and bangs hard on the tail until he stabilizes the plane. Sal hears a strange noise and tries to pull Corey back. He almost manages, but Corey falls, and Sal ends up being pulled out as well. A hook inside the plane holds the rope, and Sal, with no choice, cuts the other end of the rope with a knife and manages to return inside, and then quickly closes the door. Sarah, desperate, asks where Corey is. Sal lies, saying that the rope broke, and Sarah cries for her cousin. Sal claims to have seen something outside and tries to alert the group, but no one pays attention. He yells for Sarah to land, and she begins to lower the plane with a sad and worried look. Minutes later, Sarah asks if anyone sees anything, and Sal replies that there are only dark clouds. Bruce wakes up, asks why he is tied up and where Corey is, but no one answers. Mel accuses Sal of having killed Corey, and Sal denies, lunging at her. He mocks the situation, saying that her boyfriend is dead and that nothing else matters. Bruce asks what happened, and Mel explains that Corey went to the tail of the plane, but Sal saw something grab him. Sal confirms that there is a monster out there. Sarah tells Sal to shut up while Bruce complains about being tied up. Sarah explains that it's just for safety until everyone trusts him, and accuses Bruce of lying about his parents' death. He confirms that his parents didn't die in a car accident. Sarah calls Mel to take control of the plane, while she talks to Bruce, who reveals that he met Sarah's mother on a flight. Sarah calls him a liar, and Bruce accuses Sarah's mother of having killed his parents. Sal loses it, saying they only attract death and that everything is lost. Sarah returns to the controls of the plane and tries to contact the control center, but hears a strange static. Bruce asks to turn up the volume, and everyone hears a strange noise. Sal says it's the monster again. Sarah tries to explain that there could be a rational explanation, that the lack of oxygen can cause hallucinations. Even Mel starts to doubt, but Sarah tries to calm everyone down. Sal asks how long they have been descending, and everyone wonders where the ground is and where they are going. Bruce starts recounting that they were hit by a plane that appeared out of nowhere, and Sarah asks him to stop with these theories, agreeing with him. Moments later, looking out the window, a huge mouth engulfs the plane. In a flashback, we see little Sarah with her mother in a field when her mother asks her to wake up. Back in reality, it's Mel trying to wake Sarah. Sarah quickly regains control of the plane, which is off balance and about to fall. When it seems like it's going to plummet, she manages to stabilize it, and Mel cries out of despair, sitting in the back. The group hears several noises when suddenly something sticks to the plane, and Sal comments that they are going to die. Mel faints and has seizures, and seeing this, Sal enters a panic. Fortunately, Bruce saves her by administering first aid. Bruce sees a torn part of the comic where a couple talks, and the creature pulls them. Fiction mirrors reality as the creature pulls Mel out of the plane, and Sal screams out the window. Bruce, incredulous, accuses Sal. In the struggle, Sal opens the door and tries to throw Bruce out. Sarah quickly gets up and knocks Sal out with a fire extinguisher, hitting him in the head. Suddenly, Sal is dragged outside, and Sarah cries for all the losses. She blames herself, but Bruce tells her it's not her fault, talks about what he saw in the comic, and takes the blame. He reveals that 10 years ago he saw something and blames himself for the accident. He shows the comic to Sarah, who recounts everything they have lived through. As they talk, the creature attacks again, holding the plane with tentacles. Sarah asks Bruce to face his fears and confront the past. Bruce takes command, they kiss, and suddenly the light comes back as the storm disappears from view. Sarah contacts the control center and receives a response. Bruce asks about the kiss, and she confirms that she likes him. Everything darkens again and they panic. Then with the creature's attack, they try to escape from it behind the seats. The monster grabs Sarah, but Bruce holds her, and she asks him to think of their parents. Sarah is dragged, but Bruce screams desperately and recovers his girlfriend. Back at the controls, they face the same plane from the past that caused their parents' deaths. Together they swerve, but the plane runs out of fuel and begins to fall. Sarah asks Bruce to use his imagination again, but he says he has already done that. We see that they manage to change the past, reuniting with their alive parents. The children introduce themselves, and the movie ends with them watching the sunset.